One of the questions that I get asked a lot is, how did I get into the coffee business? I was working as a banker in Saudi Arabia back in 2011 until 2016, and we used to consume a lot of coffee. But it never occurred to me that I'll be running a coffee business after my stint in banking. I was looking to do something. The family has been in business. In fact, I grew up in an environment like this. So my father had a rice business, and I never thought of running a rice business myself. I studied finance back in the UK, got into banking, was working in investment banking in Saudi Arabia. And when I was looking to do something on my own, one of my friends coincidentally started a coffee business back in India. And I started importing their products back in Saudi and in the UAE. And I saw the market opportunity, how it was evolving. I felt the market was a bit underserviced and the growth potential was there. So I started trading initially. Then I got an opportunity to open up a cafe in Saudi Arabia in one of the airports at Terminal 5, which used to be the domestic terminal at that time in Riyadh. Coincidentally, the processing in rice is quite similar to the processing in coffee at the origins. For example, the wash process is quite similar, the drying process is quite similar. And every time I visit a farm or a processing unit, it takes me back to my childhood where I grew up in the rice mill. I remember during winters, we used to get the rice crop, and the crop would be laid out on the fields in the rice mill for drying, and then it would go for processing further. And we also used to have small washing stations for a varietal of rice which is commonly known as Sela. Basmati was more on the dried side. So when I started the coffee business, I found so many similarities between the two. And that's how I got in the coffee business. And I realized I have to be there in the business full time to make it work, because otherwise it doesn't work easily. So I started trading coffee in the beginning, coffee capsules, coffee beans. I started importing from Italy in the beginning, roasted products. And I realized the market opportunity was great. The market was highly fragmented. There were a lot of smaller roasteries that were coming up at that time. And in fact, the number of roasteries have grown up to a significant number, to few hundreds, if not thousand, in the region. But on the institutional level, the market still remains very fragmented. So why the institutional strategy? It's for a simple reason. Historically, most of the larger chains, most of the institutions that operate here in the coffee business have been bringing coffee from their respective countries, whether it's Europe, the US, or from other countries they come from. But recently, the localization process has accelerated. And one of the reasons these institutions were not roasting locally, because the infrastructure for such roasting capabilities did not exist. And only recently, there have been few companies who have been able to create an infrastructure where these institutions can come and work as roasting or production companies for these institutions. Now, that's where Bevarabia is heading today, because we feel the number of institutions that are looking to expand in the region are quite significant. However, there are not many companies who have the roasting infrastructure or manufacturing infrastructure or even packaging infrastructure to be able to support these companies. So in the beginning, we were not too sure about our strategy, so we were hedging our bets. We added lots of products such as frappes, syrups to our portfolio. In COVID, we established an e-commerce platform, and we were selling anything that we could get our hands on this platform. We were fortunate to have an e-commerce platform at that time. After COVID, we tried to realize that e-commerce had certain limitations as a strategy, and we started understanding the business more in detail and what was the thing that market really needed. And we identified that while there are so many roasteries in the region, there are not many institutional scale roasting companies. You can count on fingers. And that's where we started pivoting towards coffee. We started working on an institutional scale roasting capability in Saudi Arabia. In parallel, we initiated a project to acquire roasting facilities of institutional scale in the UAE, which is what we have built today. So that's been the journey so far, where we started as a small trader in the way we pivoted towards opening a few coffee shops. Some failed, some did well. Then during COVID, we launched the e-commerce, which sort of faded after COVID era. Then finally, we decided to double down on our institutional scale coffee strategy, which has given a lot of results in terms of scale, in terms of visibility, in terms of capability. And that's the journey so far. So while in banking, I would walk into a coffee shop. I would perhaps never, ever ask what origin it is, what roast level it is. I wouldn't want to know any of it. I was just interested in a nice cup of coffee. But now, 10 years on in the business, I walk into a coffee shop, I have to scan through their offerings. I have to look into what the coffee is, where is it coming, when is it roasted, and I can visualize the whole supply chain, what's going on behind the scene.